All right. So thank you everyone for joining. My name is Thomas Huang, Partnerships and Projects Leads at Happier. And we're super excited today to have a great speaker, Elizabeth Fung, Political Assistant to Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development, Hong Kong SAR Government. So today she'll be sharing a bit about the recent relief measures, Hong Kong's economic outlook. So maybe I can just pass it over to you, Elizabeth, to start. Thank you so much for joining us today and thank you for your time.
Sure, no, happy to be here, and it's great to meet you all virtually. I'm Elizabeth Fong, Political Assistant to the Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development, Mr. Edward Yao. I work in the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau. Many of you will probably know the Bureau for some of its departments, for example, Invest Hong Kong, which is the organizer of the annual Start Me Up Festival and the FinTech Week. I work very closely with colleagues at Invest Hong Kong, as well as the Trade Development Council, the Productivity Council in Hong Kong to support startups and SMEs of all kinds. Our objectives is really to be here to support you on funding scheme, questions about policies, and also just to help you with networking when it comes to getting resources and information about the Hong Kong business environment and startup ecosystem. And so today, I hope that you will come away with some information from this webinar that you will find useful and can make best use of resources provided by the government to weather the difficult times that we're going through. You know, as they say, every crisis is an opportunity to make over in business and government alike. So I think, we will all be able to come out of what we are undergoing now stronger together. Perhaps I'll just go over our latest situation with COVID-19. We were one of the first markets to be hit by COVID-19, and we raised the emergency. We raised the response level to emergency on the 25th of January. Since then, to date, we have 1,067 confirmed cases, of which 1,034 have been discharged, thankfully, and only 4 deaths for now. We have been, at the Hong Kong government, we've been pursuing a proactive containment policy in fighting the virus. It's underpinned by science, proactive contact tracing and testing, and social distancing. So every positive case in Hong Kong is hospitalized, whether or not it shows symptoms. And even as the curve of infection is flattening out now, we are stepping up effort in surveillance to keep community transmission in check. Of course, we owe it to civil society for being self-disciplined in putting on masks, avoiding public gatherings, and helping each other out. So thank you all for contributing to the fight against the virus. While we remain highly vigilant, we are opening up the economy in a gradual and conscious manner. We are prudently assessing when and how adjustments should be made to measures that affect business under the prevention and control of disease regulations. So please stay tuned for announcement on these changes in the coming weeks. Just a bit on the state of the economy. As soon as COVID-19 hits, we effectively are fighting a double battle. The first, of course, is the coronavirus itself, and the second is the ongoing economic recession. Hong Kong's economy was already in technical recession by the end of 2019. In the first quarter of 2020, Hong Kong's GDP contracted by 8.9%. That's the deepest slump in Hong Kong since records began in 1974. Merchandise export went down by 8.1% in the first 4 months of 2020, whereas retail sales went down by 35% in the first quarter of 2020. So we fully understand that the impact of COVID-19 on business is far-reaching. Certainly, some industries bear the brunt of the immediate blow, but business of all kinds feel the pain too. Our strategy for economic relief is to save not only the hard-hit industries, but also enterprises across the board. So in February, the Hong Kong government set up a $30 billion anti-epidemic fund and introduced another stimulus package of $120 billion with the 2020-21 budget. In March, the government topped up substantively the anti-epidemic fund, adding another $137.5 billion to help business in Hong Kong at large. So altogether, that's a total of $287 billion, equivalent to 10% of our GDP. And this is a level of support that the government has never exerted until now in supporting enterprises and save jobs. So COVID-19 will definitely go down in history as one of the most lethal pandemics. But we do see a silver lining. It has given traditional business the impetus to shed outmoded ways of operation and really transform, embrace innovation. This is, based on our observations of, business that have been coming up and searching for help in digitization. This kind of attitude change is critical to building a smart city that works for all. So I do hope that you will join me in staying positive and not giving up in search for ways to make the best out of the situation. Now, let me go over 3 support schemes under the Anti-Epidemic Fund that will likely be relevant to you. And I'm just going to share my screen here with you to pull up some slides with information that you may find helpful. So I hope everyone sees the screen and the presentation. Perhaps the most direct support really comes from the Employment Support Scheme. It provides time-limited financial support to employers to retain employees who may otherwise be made redundant. It will support salary payments for 6 months in 2 tranches. The first tranche will support salary payment from June to August 2020, and the second tranche from September to November 2020. Employers have to make 2 undertakings. The first is not to make staff redundant during the subsidy period. And the second is to spend all subsidies on paying wages to employees during the subsidy period. We want to make the scheme as simple as possible. So the eligibility criteria are very straightforward. So long as you are an employer who have been participating in the Mandatory Provident Fund schemes, so MPF, or have set up occupational retirement schemes for employees, also schemes, otherwise known as, you are eligible. The MPF accounts of employers and employees should have been set up on or before 31st of March 2020, so this year. If you're a self-employed person, you may also benefit. You're eligible if you have set up your MPF account on or before 31st of March 2020, and it has not been terminated as of this date, and is an active account. The amount of wage subsidies will be calculated based on 50% of the actual wages paid to each employee aged 18 to 64 in the specified month. There is another way of calculating the subsidies for employees who are age 65 or above because of the way that the MPF contributions no longer made. When we talk about the specified month, we're really talking about any one month that you choose for your company from December 2019 to March 2020. So you have the flexibility of deciding which month would work in your best interest as a benchmark for wage calculation. If you're a self-employed person, you will get a one-off lump sum subsidy of $7,500. Now, on the undertaking not to make redundancies during the subsidy period, in the case of the first tranche of subsidies, the number of employees on the payroll in any one month of the subsidy period, that is from June to August 2020, should not be less than the number of paid all unpaid staff in March 2020. So for any company which has received the first tranche of subsidies, if it cannot use all wage subsidies received for a particular month to pay the wages of employees in the same month, the government will claw back the unspent balance of the subsidy. Also, if the number of employees on the payroll in any 1 month of the subsidy period is less than the number of paid or unpaid staff in March 2020, then the employer will have to pay a penalty to the government. Now, a penalty sounds horrific, but it's actually effectively a reduction from the total amount of subsidies that you could be getting. It is calculated based on a formula that is shown on the screen here. So wage subsidies received for a month times the headcount reduction percentage times a penalty percentage. The penalty percentage really is a factor that is determined by the size of your company. So the larger the company you are, the higher the penalty percentage. But it's not like you are ineligible for the subsidy to begin with, and it's not taking a big chunk out of your subsidy. Now, online applications for the first tranche of subsidies is now open till the 14th of June 2020. We expect most employers to receive wage subsidy in 3 to 4 months after the application. Please log on to ess.gov.hk to apply. And you can also call the hotline. We've got 400 people responding to your inquiries on the hotline. You can also send an email to us. On the website, you will find information and an FAQ on the scheme. Hopefully that is going to help with the application process. So that's the first scheme that I want to cover today. I also want to talk about the subsidy scheme for encouraging early deployment of 5G. The Commerce and Economic Development Bureau is responsible for the development of telecommunications infrastructure and the telecommunications industry in Hong Kong. And as a part of that, 5G infrastructure development has been our top priority in the past couple of years. And I'm pleased to say that following the assignment and auction of 5G deployment last year, of 5G spectrum last year, 5G mobile communications is now commercially available. So to encourage various business sectors to deploy 5G technology, we've introduced this subsidy scheme. The Office of the Communications Authority, OFCA, is the secretariat. The subsidy scheme aims to foster innovation in smart city applications and to help business raise competitiveness. So the objective is very simple, and the scope of eligible bodies is also large. So whether you are an NGO, a public or private entity, an enterprise, or large or small companies, so long as you are an end user of the technology, you can apply. And it's not sector specific. You may be in retail, healthcare, education, and so on. You can try to apply for the subsidy for using 5G technology. The key is 5G technology deployment. So it's not just an upgrade of anything that you're currently doing. And so in so doing, we do encourage that end users work with technology providers or application solution providers to develop the application, to develop the deployment plan. And if you're not an end user and a startup, you may be one of these technology solution providers. Do make sure that your customers are aware of the subsidy scheme as well and make best use of it. The subsidy scheme covers 50% of the project costs. So that is a matching grant subject to a cap of 500,000 per project. We expect that the scheme will support around 100 projects that can bring substantive benefits, innovation and cross-sectoral synergy to the applicants or the industry of the applicants. Application opens from 5th of May to 30th of November 2020, and the projects must be completed before 31st of March 2021. For more details, the full application guideline, the application form, and so on, please visit OFCA's website. So it's just www.ofca.gov.hk/5G-subsidy. And the URL is actually shown on the screen. The other subsidy scheme that I believe a lot of us will be interested in here today is the one for convention and exhibitions. It's a very pragmatic subsidy. It simply means that if you are going to attend an exhibition, a trade fair, or an international convention, including a startup convention, for example, so long as it's held or organized by Hong Kong TDC, or is held at Hong Kong CEC or the Asia World Expo, then chances are you will be able to benefit. Now, what exactly are the details specifically? Well, it consists of, first of all, for participants of Hong Kong TDC Fair and major conferences, you'll get a 50% off the participation fee. The organizers of exhibitions and international conventions at the Hong Kong CEC and Asia World Expo will receive a subsidy for 100% of their venue rental, and will ensure that the organizers are transferring benefits from cost savings to participants of the exhibitions and conventions. So just think about, in the past year or two, the number of conferences that you've attended, or the exhibitions that you've attended at Hong Kong CEC or Asia World Expo. Those probably are the ones that you will benefit from with the subsidy scheme. Normally, government funding schemes do not permit double funding, meaning that you can't apply for two funding schemes for the same event at the same time. But in this instance, we are making special arrangements for this subsidy, for the convention and exhibition industry subsidy, to be used concurrently with the existing SME Export Marketing Fund and BUD Fund. So the aim is to help business get maximum support from available government funding. How exactly will that work? Let me just give a couple of examples. If your participation fee at one of these exhibitions is 20,000 or less, you can effectively take part in the exhibition for free, because you will be able to get 50% subsidy from the Convention and Exhibition Industry Subsidy Scheme and EMF. If the participation fee is 30,000 or more, or 30,000 for the purpose of illustration, you will get 10,000 from the subsidy scheme, and then say you're applying to the EMF also, then you'll get 15,000 from it, meaning that at the end you will be only paying 5,000. So the subsidy scheme will run for a year from the time when it's opportune to hold the next major exhibition or convention. At the moment, we anticipate this first major exhibition to be the book fair, which will be held in July. Internally, we will coordinate between ourselves, between implementing agencies of the three funding schemes, so that the application procedure is as streamlined as possible, and you can obtain the subsidy without knocking on multiple doors. I pause here, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Sure, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for sharing. I guess my first question, taking a step back, many of the audience are startups, entrepreneurs, which is great to hear that even self-employed people can receive part of the employment subsidy scheme. But for startups who aren't aware of the different funds, I believe there's over 40 different ones, and the process, especially for startups who are coming from overseas and not local, what's the process like, and how can they start researching and figure out which funds are relevant to them?
Sure. So we, as the government always go out to say that, oh, we've got 40 plus funding schemes and a huge amount of money that you can apply for, but oftentimes companies come back to us, startup or otherwise, to say that, well, first of all, we don't have the capacity to scroll through every page of subsidy scheme information that you have, and secondly, each of these schemes may have a specific purpose, and if I am not aware of what the purpose of the scheme is, I would not be able to assess whether or not I should go for it. And there are also a lot of concerns as to how much time one would have to put in to prepare the application. The word is that it seems to be a very onerous process. We fully understand that it's not enough to just give out money or have a scheme for people to fall back on. It's also important that when that we provide the service to help people understand the schemes and find out which would really work for each company in their specific context. So in the past half a year or so, we have started a process of integrating our SME and startup support services across 4 SME centers that traditionally deliver parts of this kind of service. And they are the Hong Kong Trade Development Council's SME Center, the Hong Kong Productivity Council, the Trade and Industry the Trade and Industry Department has a Success Center which offers this type of consultation as well, and Tech One at Hong Kong Science Park. From 1st of October last year, all these 4 centers have come together to consolidate their knowledge base and consolidate the way they deliver services to SMEs. And so now, if you are an SME or startup, if you go to any of one of these 4 centers, you can expect that you will be able to get information about any of the 40 funding schemes that could be eligible, that could be applicable to you. So that's consolidation of services in the provision of information. But importantly, we are also developing the capabilities of these 4 centers to offer customized advice as to which scheme would suit the objectives that you're trying to achieve. And secondly, what you need to do to go through the application process, the kind of considerations that you need to explain in the project application, the documents that you need to get together so that you can submit an application with a certain level of confidence that this is not an application where the vetting committee will come back to you and ask rounds and rounds of questions because there was misunderstanding with certain parts of the application process. We understand that this advisory service needs some time to acclimatize, and so please do not shy away from using the service. I think in using the service when there is a greater demand, our service centers will also be able to make improvements faster. I do encourage everybody to approach one of these centers, and you don't have to approach them just by physically going to them. If you go to the websites of any of these 4 centers, you can find contact information Sure, yes. I mentioned just now the SME Export Marketing Fund and also the BUD Fund, which is typically used for uh, branding and marketing